Hey everybody, Brent here. I'm an environmental educator at the Ogden Nature Center, and I'm very excited to be part of Bee Fest this year. I'm going to show you around the Nature Center a little bit and visit some of our flowers and our pollinators. So right here we have a pollinator visiting the Indian blanket flower. I'm going to take a guess that this is actually one of our honeybees that is from our observation hive just at our visitor center. Looks like it's probing around to get some nectar, and if you look closely you might be able to see it's got a little bit of pollen on top of its head. So over time, as it visits more flowers, it'll actually push that pollen from its head down to its hind legs, its back legs, and then it can carry the pollen around to other flowers and back to the hive to feed the larvae too. Okay. Let's move along and see if we can find some other pollinators down here. I do always bring a net and a jar with me because you never know, you might want to get a closer look, right? Get something in the jar and have a really nice close look. So we've got some milkweed here as well, and the monarch butterflies, when they come through, they will come and lay their eggs here, and the caterpillars will chow down on the leaves. But they will pollinate as well. And we've got another kind of flower over here. I actually don't know what this is, and that's okay. But you'll see, got some friends coming through, a couple of bees around, quite a few actually. And once you take a minute to actually look, you'll see some other things, like there's a milkweed beetle here. These guys can be accidental pollinators too, you know, just running over the top of flower petals and continuing along their way to wherever they're going, and they'll drop the pollen as they go. So of course a lot of pollinators don't do this on purpose, right? They're just trying to get where they need to go, but it actually helps the plants to reproduce. Pretty clever. Okay, we'll move over to our hyssop over here now, so follow me. I wish you guys at home could smell this plant because it is very aromatic. So it has a really, really nice smell. It kind of reminds me of Twizzlers or licorice of some kind. So you can only imagine that that smell would also attract pollinators. And before I tell you what kind of pollinators, which do you think would visit these? Take a look at the long tubular flowers. Kind of makes you think what would be visiting it would also have to have a long tubular like mouth or a beak, say. Hummingbirds love this stuff. They can stick their beak way down into the tube of the flower and get the nectar out of there and take off where they need to go, obviously taking some pollen on their beak as they go too. But you'll see some others around as well. There's some bees that are also visiting here. A couple of wasps I've seen today too. So that's not to say that a bee can't crawl inside and still be covered in pollen as well. Okay, one more flower I'd like to show you. We'll just do a little 180. Come right over here. This is actually another flower that I'm not familiar with. And that's the really cool thing about my job, is I'm always learning. So take a look around. See a couple of another honeybee here. Just getting right down in there, trying to find where the best nectar is. And we spotted something earlier over here, which was pretty cool. Not a pollinator though. You will see a ton over here. Oh. But if you look carefully, there's another insect that's hanging around. You see that? That's an ambush bug. And as the name indicates, they will ambush their prey. So I'm not sure if this guy or gal could take down a honeybee. I'm sure one has tried before. But it's a very clever thing to do for a predator, to hide amongst flowers where pollinators are coming and going, and they can easily snatch a meal just by waiting around and being very still like that. So yeah, you never know what you're going to find when you walk through the gardens. Okay, we found something pretty interesting here. In amongst all the pollinators that are visiting this flower, we've also found a predator. You'll see, this is pretty awesome, this spider web here is just covered in bee carcasses. So yeah, predators like this have really got an advantage here where the pollinators have to come and get the nectar, so there's no other choice for them, and then, you know, a bee like this will inevitably get ensnared. Okay, take a look out over our catmint patch and see how many pollinators you can find, and see if you can identify some of them. When I look out over this patch, I see quite a few honeybees that are probably from our observation hive. I see a few wasps and grasshoppers as well. So again, there's predators and prey that are abounding in the flowers. And I've seen bumblebees in the past, as well as some butterflies. And I've got one with me here, actually. This tiny little butterfly is actually a skipper. And they have that name because of the way they move. They kind of skip or jump around. So these little guys, they pollinate too. They go in and take their long proboscis and they reach down and see how much nectar they can get from the flower before they go to the next one. And by skipping around in this fashion, it actually makes them harder to catch as prey. But again, another great pollinator that we'd see in Utah. So we've got a ladybug hanging out on some milkweed here. You know, not known as a pollinator, but they can eat some of the aphids that might ruin your garden for other pollinators. So again, very, very beneficial insects to have in your garden. We also have a couple of wasps around here, and wasps get a pretty bad reputation, unfortunately. Of course, you know, if you mess with one, sure, you can agitate them and they'll sting you. But they're also great for eating pests. So pests might include, actually the cabbage white butterfly caterpillar is a pest. So these wasps will take care of those caterpillars, again, that would ruin your pollinator garden. So it's not a bad idea to have a space aside in your front or backyard for wasps to nest. Okay, so we've talked about insects as pollinators so far. Let's switch gears and talk a little bit about birds now. So birds visit flowers for a variety of reasons, right? They get a lot of food from there. They might even find some shelter in a cluster of flowers. But the most prominent bird in the United States that pollinates is the hummingbird. You can see there's another little pollinator up there. These guys, we can find about 16 of these in the United States. And the most common in Utah are the broad-tailed hummingbird, as well as the black-chinned hummingbird. Now, if you're really, really lucky, you might find a couple of these stragglers in the autumn right now, but most of them have migrated down to Mexico for the season. So you can still be excited about them, and later on we're going to talk a little bit about feeders that you can prepare in the spring when they come back. These birds, they have such a high metabolism, so they have to get a lot of nectar from these flowers to keep them going. Just to give you an idea of how high their metabolisms are, the heartbeats are about 1,200 times a minute. I bet you can't clap that fast. In addition to that, their wings beat about 70 times a second. So these little guys, they need lots and lots of sugar to keep them going, which is also supplemented with a little bit of protein from time to time, eating a couple of bugs here and again. So if you want to attract hummingbirds to your garden, these are the kind of flowers that you should plant. Maybe this one right here, the hyssop, which also really smells nice. You'll notice that the hyssop is tubular. It's also kind of recurved so that the hummingbird can dip its beak really deep into that flower to get that nectar out. And flowers that are shaped like funnels and cups will work really fine as well for hummingbirds. It's also really handy for these guys to have a bit of support for them to perch. They can still get the nectar from the flower while they're perching. Like I said, their wings are beating really, really fast, so it's nice to give them a little break from time to time. Now you'll notice in the picture that I held up before, we have a pink, kind of a reddish flower, and it's the same with the hyssop. These are the kind of flowers that hummingbirds are attracted to. Really bright red, yellow and orange works really well too to get them there. You also want flowers that produce lots and lots of nectar, and like we said, they need a lot of sugar. Okay? And for the flower's benefit, it actually helps for them to be tubular, so that when the hummingbird sticks its beak in the tube, it'll dust the pollen on top of the hummingbird's neck or the head, so that when they visit another flower, they'll help the flower to reproduce. So those are a couple of things that you can think about when planning your own gardens to attract hummingbirds. Now, if you'd like, you can also prepare some feeders as well, which is a really common way to attract hummingbirds. And I've got some over here, so let's go have a look at those and we'll talk about those. Okay, here we have a DIY hummingbird feeder that I was able to create for my own cupboard. This is from soy sauce, and this is the kind of thing you can find in any grocery store. I did paint the cap red, but you can buy ones with red caps already, which is probably better for the hummingbird anyway. All I did was obviously used all the soy sauce, and then I took a pipe cleaner, which I found around here, which can easily grapple onto the branch there. And there you go. Just clean it out every couple of days to keep the hummingbirds safe when they come visit. And if you want to make your own food, you can do that too. You're going to want to use 1 part sugar and 4 parts water, and that gives them plenty of sustenance that they need to keep them going in the area. A couple other DIY feeders. Actually, this one's something I bought here at the Ogden Nature Center. It's pretty fun. It's a ring. So you'll have to have a bit of patience with this one. But if you've got a few hummingbird feeders already set up in your yard, then this might be a really cool addition to have once they're used to the surroundings in your area. So how neat would it be for them to perch on your finger and have a sip of nectar right there? But you don't have to buy one of these. You can make one too. Apparently there is a woman in Logan Canyon who has tons and tons of hummingbirds come to her backyard, and she has figured out, with just using a yellow lid like this with red pipe cleaner surrounding it, putting a little bit of that sugary drink inside, she can have the hummingbirds come land right on her hand and have them drink right out of this lid. How cool is that? And this is so simple. This is something anybody can do with a little bit of patience. So try that out. Try to get some pollinators to come visit your yards and get a really close look up at them. All right, guys, well, thanks so much for visiting the Ogden Nature Center. And again, we were so happy to be part of Bee Fest, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one.